the Shaggy Jenkins Show, 88.5 FM, the voice of Maui. I am, of course, the voice of your humble host, Shaggy Jenkins. Today, we'll be doing some talking about our Focus on Your Family segments. A lot of people have been going, why did you name those things? Why do people suck? Because you have to call things for what they are. Speaking of calling things what they are, in just a little bit, does America have a problem with revenge and violence? We'll talk the culture of those things. Plus, since it's Thursday, we will settle in eventually to the part of the show that we say, you know what? These are things that you're not going to believe. And that's all on the way in just a little bit. First off, if you'd like to follow the show online, you can. I have a Twitter thing. It's I'm a twit. It's at Shaggy Live. You can also look for Facebook.com/ShaggyLive. That's pretty easy to find me online. As a matter of fact, I'm called NSA's best customer for surveillance, in the regards to how easily I can be found online. If you do listen to the show online through the TuneIn app or stuff, welcome from whatever part of the world that you are joining us today. You can also, if you want to in a little bit, 877-6363, that's the number. You can call in with your opinions and stuff, maybe your pithy comments, brainy accusations of maybe wrongdoing on the part of the show's host. You can do that in just a little bit. Let's start off today with our Focus on Your Family. Okay? Now, this week so far, we've done, why does dad, father suck? Why does wife, mother suck? And now, it's time to talk about why your kids suck at being a family. Now, if you've been paying attention the last couple of days on the show, you know that this is going to come up with that big C word in a little bit, but let's just break it down. If you have kids right now, because school's out, go ahead, push them really close to the speaker so that they can hear what I'm about to say. When it comes to appreciating things that came before you, the generation that we have right now with our kids is probably the least likely to give any sort of respect. Now, why is that? Is it the anti-establishment attitudes that us 90s grungers, Generation X had? God, did I just date myself there? Is it the unbound optimism and devil-may-care attitude of the 1980s? Or is it the, hey, you know what, lick the lead paint 1970s? What is it that permeates in the culture of kids now, in the year 2016, that makes them horrible at their family? It's the lack of appreciation that you young people have for the sacrifices that people have put in front of you. It's why this show has a segment called Way Back Wednesday, where we always try to talk about the history of people that came before us, because legacy, something that you're a part of, kids, legacy is important. Not only in the American family, the world family, the human race as a general culture. But when we bring up that word legacy, you're a part of it, kids. That means that you can either A, choose to emulate the greatness that you have seen in the generations before you, grandfathers, fathers, mothers, grandmothers, aunts, uncles, older cousins, or something along the lines of what I did. You can look at all the generational history of your family and go, no, I want to try something different. And you can start your own legacy that your kids, just like you are now with your parents, will live in the shadow of. Now, why do I say all these things and bring it up under the topic of why do kids suck at family? Because kids, your parents are not just banks. They're just not money machines, okay? Those are called ATMs, and you actually have to put money into a bank to get money out of those, versus what narrow-minded concept of financial responsibility you'll have. But not only that, parents aren't just there when you need them. They're parents 24 hours a day from the second you entered into this world. And there needs to be a certain amount of reverence, a certain amount of respect, kids, that when you look at your parents and when you look at the people that come before you, that you need to have for these things. Because, yes, you right now are sitting there, your iPads have been taken away because your parents really want you to hear this part of the show. So you're angry at Uncle Shaggy, I understand. You can get back to Minecraft in just a sec, I promise. But when it comes to how you view the older generations, you, the youth, it's time to realize that you couldn't be in a position to be in front of a speaker, torturously made to listen to this show, if it wasn't for the sacrifice of your parents. You wouldn't have that iPad to get bored with the games that you've already bought if it wasn't for your parents slaving away, sometimes at jobs that they absolutely hate. And you as a child, I know that the world is this big, weird place where there's this duality for you. There's the world that you live in, and then there's the world that the adults live in. Well, eventually you're going to cross the threshold from being in your own little childish world into in the adult world, and you're going to notice certain things. And along the lines of those things that you're going to notice, one of them is going to be that life in America ain't easy. It's just not. There's bills, there's oh God, let's not even get into taxes, kids, because when you reach the age that you pay Uncle Sam, he is going to be your least favorite uncle. And that's even including if you have an uncle that's an alcoholic that likes to come to the family dinners and ruin them. You're going to hate your Uncle Sam worse than that jerk. At least when it comes to the big T word. Ugh. But right now, you're still in your childish world, where things are provided for you. Those things come from effort. Not just your parents' effort, but from other adults' efforts. Maybe in different even parts of the world. Manufacturing the products that get put up in the stores that are taken from the manufacturing places to the stores by human hands. And then your parents have to slave away at a job for a boss that they probably hate to bring home the paycheck to get you that device for you to get bored on. That is something that you have to realize is a reality in the adult world. We constantly sacrifice for you, younger generation. We do. And we do it because we care and we love you. And a little bit of respect for that. A little bit of reverence for your parents. The sanctity of the people that provide for you needs to come back into your behavior. I know it's not being taught anywhere. I know that since school is out, you're thinking that the education is over. But in the adult world, kids, education always happens. And one of the biggest lessons that we learn as adults is that we will do anything for you. Once you have a child, your mentality takes a little bit of warp. Once you adopt a child for the first time, you have a different opinion of how the world works. When you are one of those children, you have no idea the worry, the concern, the hours upon hours of agonizing over every little detail of your life we adults do to make sure that you're provided things like food, even if it isn't the best food, even if it's, oh, that's not my favorite, I hate that. It doesn't matter. We worked hard to provide that for you. If it's shelter, especially if it's shelter in Maui's housing economy, holy cow, do we bleed for you. So, young generation, when I ask you to have a little bit of respect for the older generations, please note that I ask that because your attitude is ruining your family. Because when mom and dad come home every day and they're tired and they've been overworked and maybe they've just had it rough in traffic or something, and you start in with all of the demands and stuff that you're going to have that have no relevance to establishing your life as any sort of better or more successful path. It's just entertainment or mindlessness. But when you go and you assault your parents right through the door with all these demands without taking at least 3 seconds to look at mom and dad's face and say, "How are you doing, Mom? How are you doing, Dad? I'm so happy to see you right now." When you don't take the time to do that, you make your parents feel unappreciated. And they probably already feel unappreciated in so many other areas of their life before they got home to you. The one person, children, you're the one person that we depend on to love us unconditionally because we love you unconditionally. And so, yeah, if you're sitting around this summer right now, if your parents are forcing you to listen to this broadcast and you're just like hating Uncle Shaggy now, please note that I'm telling you this not because you're a child now, but because one day you're going to be an adult too. And you're going to go to a job that doesn't appreciate you, and you're going to go out into the world that doesn't like you some days. You're going to have to sacrifice and I hate to say it, sometimes cry and bleed over things. Real blood, real tears. So now while you're a child, let me tell you before you get to that adult world, that we adults ahead of you, we're already in that world, and we're doing everything that we can to make it easier for you when you get here. So even if you don't like us some days, mad at your mom because she did this, or mad at your dad because he did. Even if you don't like us some days, please respect what we are doing for your benefit. And it's something that not only are we doing constantly, but we're doing it consistently. Every single day, whether we want to or not. So just a little bit of appreciation from the younger generation would go a long way towards that. And because that appreciation doesn't exist right now in the household, we have to call it, this is why kids suck at family. Sad, but true. We'll be back with more in just a sec, including, is it time to look at the culture of revenge and violence in the United States? It's the Shaggy Jenkins Show. It's 88.5 FM, the voice of Maui. Hey, it's the Shaggy Jenkins Show. I'm, of course, your host, Shaggy Jenkins. If you'd like to follow us online, you can. Or if you'd like to call into the show, you can. The number is, and I'm doing this just for the people that could be listening in at the TuneIn radio app. All you got to do is search and look for KAKU-LP. Not FM, because we're a low-powered station. FM stations have these things called rules that we don't like. But that's okay. Speaking of rules, I've got to break one of the cardinal rules on radio. I forgot to bring in a power cord today. See, I told you, kids. It's kind of rough being an adult sometimes. But now that we've got all this adulting down, let's talk about one of the main stories that you see running, dare I say, permeating through the consciousness right now of American society, not just at the nation at large, but right here in our own 50th state. It's the culture that not only has started to see more litigation and legislation thrown towards, but has also kind of seen almost a popularity surge lately. I'm talking about the culture of revenge in America, the culture of violence in America. Now, I'm not talking just about the Hollywood model of violence and stuff like that with the big CGI explosions, and I hate to watch those movies because they've started using something called fuzzy physics where, a body can be thrown 40 stories and caught by a robot hand and not instantly crush every bone in their body, as you would know if you studied anything with Isaac Newton. But I digress from that. No, I'm talking about the culture of us permeating violence against us. Now, of course, I could cite cultural influences in this. I could even right now go through a litany of media sins about this culture. I'm talking specifically about reality television where, certain people get intoxicated in public and they start fights, and then the networks that have those shows put those little fights and stuff in their promos so that everybody gets excited to watch that program just to see that violence. And then a lot of people that are impressionable in our society see that violence and say, now that's the way you deal with a situation, and they go out and perpetrate that violence on their own. You could say that that is one of the sins of media when it comes to the culture of violence and revenge in the United States. Or you could look at the other side of the coin, that we as a people have started to become more inherently violent in our country. And what we're seeing in the media is a portrayal of the escalation of our agitations with each other. You could say all of those things. Or you could simply say that it is time that we very seriously, very analytically looked at the culture of revenge and violence in this country. Now let's talk about, you heard me mention earlier about how this subject is starting to go through legislation and litigation more and more in the past couple of decades. One of the biggest things that you could say sprung the hugest litigation in the United States when it comes to the concept of revenge. Well, 3 or 4 years ago from today's date, a revenge porn site was taken down in a Californian court. What is revenge porn, you ask? Well, let's say that you, loving couple, like to send sort of indiscriminate pictures of your bodies to each other. Tantalize and tease in the honeymoon, copulation, courting phase that you're in right now. And those things are very nice between two consenting adults. They are the spice that makes, marriages kind of fun. Relationships kind of fun. It does. And if you are a discriminating adult about them, who responsibly knows what you're doing, there's nothing wrong with it. However, revenge porn took all the jilted lovers that had received these intimate pictures of others and allowed them a website to not only post those pictures that they were supposed to receive in private, which is kind of a big deal when we talk about media usage, copyrights, licensings of image and likeness and stuff like that. It's kind of a big deal there. There are a lot of legalities when it comes behind how your image is used in a media format. But barring all of that, revenge porn also, these sites allowed you not only to post these pictures, but to post personal information about the people in those pictures. Now, could you imagine being a young woman or being a young guy? I'm saying us old guys, we don't do it because, gravity is not kind, kids. Men or women alike. when we talk about, revenge porn sites, violations of trust and stuff like that, how it entered into the litigation sphere, you could say, has to do with the thing that a lot of people always bring up when it comes to relationships in the courting phase now, a lot more than we ever did in the history before: consent. And if you are a young man or a young woman and you have sent your picture in a courting, in a tantalizing and a teasing kind of way to a person that you are romantically involved with, and then they later use those images to create a living hell for your life, we start to see how the culture is a little weird here, right? Okay. But if you're a young man and you're a young woman and you send these pictures back and forth, you should at least trust that person or entrust that person not to make your private life public, which is what revenge porn sites were really good about. It wasn't just about the naked bodies and stuff like that. It was more about the personal information about those naked pictures that was put up there, and the way that people, our society of vengeance-seeking bastards, our society then took that information and harassed people that were really, in a lot of cases, just in normal, everyday, dating-type relationships. Nothing that hasn't changed since, I don't know, we founded ourselves as a country, really. If you look at the essentials of dating and courting, as it were, in the history of the United States, not a lot's changed. Except now, we have new technology that allows you to court virtually, tantalize virtually, and also smash and destroy completely. So I wanted to look at the culture of revenge and violence today because of stuff like that. Because what would motivate a person that is probably afraid of these very actions happening to them? What switch in their brain goes awry? What connection doesn't get made that they think it's okay to do something that they would hate be done to themselves to anyone else? That's in a lot of text, I think, and as a matter of fact, if we want to break this show biblical for a sec, that's kind of referred to as the golden rule: do unto others as you would have them do unto you. But see, that's where the Bible is like, oh, it's a nice thing. Hey, you know what? We should all love and hug and I'd like to sing, the Coke song and stuff. Yeah, well, that's all well and good, but then you also have to remember there's a book like Leviticus that says eye for an eye, tooth for a tooth, life for a life. So are we seeing revenge and violence in our own American culture because it's something that's been indoctrinated into us everywhere, from our theology to our educational system to our entertainment that comes down from Hollywood? Are we an indoctrinated society when it comes to violence and revenge? Kind of, sort of. Research out of the University of Maryland, in fact, says, you know what really motivates people for revenge? A love of authority and a crave for power. And let's look at the decades that I just mentioned earlier in the show, the 80s, the 90s. These are 90s. These decades, 80s, 90s, early aughts, saw an uprise in our culture of people wanting to be more independent. And then we have this, and I don't know where the hell this came from, everybody wants to be a celebrity now culture. But whatever we thought we were doing in the 1980s with the me, during the 1990s got hooked on crack and meth, and in the early 2000s gave us what we are having now in 2016. And it's time that we put that crap on rehab. Maybe a 5150 hold or something like that. Because that culture that started with the me generation turned into the culture of revenge, of I crave authority and power so much that I will enact upon my enemies vengeance for wrongs and slights that I feel have been committed against me. Now, if we want to talk about history of violence and stuff in this country, we have to remember that there's also been kind of a, and this is sad, a small niche undercurrent of people that don't want violence. One of the biggest examples could be Martin Luther King Jr.'s speech, "I have a dream." And if you want further reference for that, there's even a quote by him that's just an aside, "An eye for an eye leaves us all blind." But that is the undercurrent in our culture. The minority of our culture wants us all to get along and to progress as one. The minority of our culture wants to see past sexuality and racism and things like that. The minority can't help the majority see the wrongs of those ways. Because the majority culture in the United States is obsessed with power, is obsessed with authority, is on an individualistic level inherently selfish and self-serving. That's a terrible thing to be when you really think about it. But it is our culture. Now, coming up, we'll talk about how that culture can be redeemed, or that culture can condemn us all. That and things you won't believe on this Thursday. It's the Shaggy Jenkins Show. KAKU would like to thank the... .5 FM, the voice of Maui. It's the Shaggy Jenkins Show. Welcome back to it. Little half past your hour here. Talking about the culture of violence and revenge in the United States. Not only is it a real thing, but it's something that's been ruining all of us for a while. And just a little bit on the show, since it's Thursday, it's Things You Won't Believe Thursday. And I have assembled some really bizarre, kind of insane stuff for us to dive into on the, areas of things that you might not believe Thursday segments. Real quick, though, before we get there, let's get back into the culture of revenge and violence in the United States as it stands now. Before the break, I had talked about how this culture has kind of been a big washing machine of everybody's blaming everybody, and everybody is trying to put each other's eyes out. If you missed the segment, just don't worry about it. Go back and listen to the replay online through our online player or kakufm.org. Check the replay, or listen tomorrow morning when we replay the show at 7 a.m. here on the voice of Maui. But for everybody else, let's talk about where that culture leads all of us today. Because if we look at the numbers of violence across the United States, we see kind of two contradictory trends. And sadly, when it comes to assembling data about violent crime, about violence permeated against police officers, violence that police officers permeate against citizenry, including innocent citizenry, these numbers are all nebulous. It's all like trying to pull Shakespeare from a bowl of soup. Not even alphabet soup, more like chicken noodle soup, so it would be even harder. But when we look at those the numbers that are out there, two things kind of contradict each other. One, we have been seeing across major metropolitan areas of the United States a drop in violent crime, including homicide. armed robbery and armed homicide, things like that. Violent crimes have kind of been going down in a lot of places where traditionally we've seen like a half or even a full % growth every 5 years. We see that in every year. Not too many years, and then all of a sudden the population is down, and then gentrification happens, and then the crime numbers change. But that's a whole different other show. But the thing that contradicts all that good news I just gave you with the homicides and the violent crimes coming down is that the more we start to look at how law enforcement and government workers interact with the public, the more we figure out that we have let them get away with violence. We have let them get away with, this is scary, outright murder. In some cases, murderers. So it's kind of scary when you look at the fact that we don't know how big those numbers can be. And every time some different organization or different watchdog group gets involved with trying to determine those numbers, not only are they met with stonewall resistance, but they're met with a lot of inaccuracies. And to extrapolate something meaningful from something inaccurate takes the work of Sherlock Holmes, not exactly something that the mortal men and women that work with these organizations can do. And so on one hand, we have a citizenry that seems to be going down in violence, and on the other hand, we seem to have a violent culture, mostly in authoritarian figures, show an increase of violence. And with the study that I had mentioned earlier out of the University of Maryland about how people that engage in violence and people that engage overwhelmingly in revenge crave authority, crave power, crave influence. And sadly, they said, they're usually kind of right-wing conservatives. There's safety in an unchanging world. And some people are willing to commit violence to keep their world from changing and growing. And that's what that study has been saying. And a lot more Americans on a bigger scale are starting to say, no, we don't want to change anymore. So we're having an increase in violence and an increase of people trying to take vengeance against the wrongs that they felt about them. Or have been done to them, I should say. Now, if you are a follower of me, Shaggy Jenkins, I don't know why you would follow me. I drive pretty slow. You would know that online, on my YouTube channel, I have something called How Dumb is America? And not too long ago, I tried to tell you how our me culture in the United States contributes to the problems that we see directly. But in case you don't feel, inclined to go online and search for How Dumb is America on YouTube, if you don't feel inclined to do that, I'm going to give you a summation right here of my findings, because even though that clip was done years and years and years ago, I think 2 of them now, years and years, God, I make myself sound so old. But even though that particular segment on How Dumb is America was done 2 years ago, it's still exactly 100% as relevant today as it was when I recorded it then. And here is what I said. Look, we have to look at our culture as far as the me-first attitude that we have, because it helps perpetuate a culture of violence and a culture of revenge. Now, what do I mean by that? Because some people here are going, oh no, Shaggy, I would never have a vengeful thought about any action taken upon myself. Oh no, But I tell you what, you say out this side of your mouth with your hand covering one side. But I tell you what, I would take a revenge for somebody else's wrongdoings. Oh, the superhero complex. Now, if you're one of those people that feels like when you see a situation happen to somebody else that you cannot but help yourself to enact some sort of revenge against the aggressors of whatever friend or family members you're rushing into the defense of. If you think that you're being one of those people is better than being one of those people that actually commits wrong for the quest of power, the quest of influence or of authority over others, if you think that these two things are different in any way, you have been lied to your whole life. Because the superhero complex that I'm talking about means that you yourself do not trust in anybody else's judgment of social fairness. That there is some sort of right and wrong scales that you and you alone sit in charge of. And you have determined that they have been tipped. Now, like I said, now this is something that doesn't happen to you directly. No, you would never be that kind of person, would you? But when you think about being the superhero for somebody else, okay? Jumping to somebody else's rescue. Does everybody need saving? Does every wrong need a revenge? Do we need to refer back to what Martin Luther King Jr. said about an eye for an eye leaves us all blind? It's things that you really need to consider. Because the superhero becomes, at first, something that other people appreciate. Hey, yeah, you went out there and you got the bad guy for me. Yay, you. They start off like that. But a little word of wisdom from the Batman movies, you live long enough, you become the villain. And that's exactly what happens to people with the superhero-type mentality of, I will take revenge for somebody else's wrongs. I will take revenge for somebody else getting slighted. I will avenge the social injustices I see. You're guilty of making it about yourself again. Not all of us exist in this world that you exist in. Not all of us have the same scales of what is justice and what is not. What is fair and what is not. So once you start trying to enforce your ideas of good and bad, of justice, of revenge on others, for the benefit of not your own, that doesn't really matter, but still, when you start to engage in those activities, you have now set yourself on the path to being the villain yourself. And that should scare the crap out of you. Because if you're the superhero in everybody else's life, who's going to save you from you? Reanalyze your thoughts on revenge. Reanalyze your thoughts on violence, because, I hate to say this, but as an enlightened person, 99.9999% of the troubles we have with those things would go away if you would just think of your fellow man. We'll be back with more things you cannot believe. It's the Shaggy Jenkins Show. Final segment of the show. 88.5 FM, the voice of Maui. It's the Shaggy Jenkins Show. Welcome back to it. Oh, okay, before we get out of here for our day today, On Thursdays, we like to kind of back the show up a little bit and do something called Unbelievable, Truly Twisted, Things You Would Not Believe Are Actual Things. Now, what this is I have scoured the internets, the webs as it were, even the YouTube-ish. Everybody else calls it YouTubes or the YouTube. YouTube-ish. I want to be unique. I've been scouring all these things for unbelievable, but absolutely 100% proven things that shouldn't be believed are actual things. Now, some of these stories are a little weird, and I thought I would start with one of the most unbelievable stories I've seen in the past couple of weeks as I've been on my news radar search across headlines in the United States. An Arizona news reporter was recently arrested for... Go ahead, guess. He got arrested for pooping on somebody's yard while he was on assignment for a story. A witness called 911 to report that one Jonathan Lowe had kind of been doing the roadrunner look left, look right thing before darting between two houses, propping his back up against the wall and leaving a haymaker right on their lawn before, pulling back up, going back out to the news van and starting his media coverage. For every single time on this show that I said, how do you not know that the media craps on you? I have finally found a story where the media has literally crapped on someone's lawn. The police report did say that Lowe admitted to doing the deed, telling the officer that, "Oh, it's okay, I was just feeling a little sick." There's something a little bit more than sick about that. Okay, this is from the News of Celebrities and, sports. Because here in Hawaii, we don't have our own NFL team, so everybody kind of comes from their own teams. And one of the teams that I have no idea why anybody likes them on this island, like, honestly, how could anyone like the New England Patriots? If you like the New England Patriots, if you like people like Tom Brady, if you think that balls are just subjective to some sort of weird pressure variance, I'm sorry, I didn't forget Deflategate. But if you're a person that likes them, then you might want to turn off the radio now. Maybe go make a snack or something. Come back in about a minute and a half when I'm done laughing hysterically. Because for the people that don't like the New England Patriots, hi, that's me, or like Tom Brady at all, I hate that guy, you're really going to love this news. Tom Brady totally backs Donald Trump. Like, he is completely crazy. He's going to vote for Trump, thinks Trump is going to, quote, make America great again. And then when asked one time in an interview, his honest opinions about a Oompa Loompa with a bad toupee come to life, Tom Brady, quarterback and habitual cheater of the NFL, New England Patriots, had this to say about Donald Trump. He said, quote, "It's pretty amazing what he's been able to accomplish." I wonder if he's referring to all the bankruptcies or the fact that he said he would sleep with his daughter if they weren't related. But anyway, back to the quote here. He goes, quote, "He obviously appeals to a lot of people." Scary, scary people. "And he's a hell of a lot of fun to play golf with," end quote. Okay, Tom Brady thinks that we should all just give Donald Trump a pass because, well, he's a lot of fun to play golf with. Oh, God. And in the news today, Hillary Clinton had made a certain, well, it's all over Drudge Report and sites like that. Hillary Clinton basically says, Trump, not good for the world. Ironically, my same opinion about Hillary Clinton. But yeah, if you hate the New England Patriots, you can hate them more. If you like the New England, if you like the New England Patriots, I have to ask you humbly after reading that, why? Why? Okay, let's get into things that you cannot believe are things with this story. This is, let's just call this hashtag scary thing that should not be a thing. The CIA recently accidentally... I can't say it with a straight... Hang on, let me get a drink of water here. I can't say this one with a straight face. Hang on. Suck it up here. You're a journalist now, Shaggy. The CIA accidentally destroyed a 6,700-page torture report that contained details of the agency's interrogation methods, including waterboarding and enhanced interrogation methods that we don't even know exist. Accidentally, they destroyed this nearly 7,000-page document. Oh my. The Inspector General's office claims that it was mistakenly... God, this is a hard story to read with a straight face. Mistakenly deleted both the computer file and the backup file containing the report. Now, this comes just 1 week after a federal appeals court upheld the ruling that those reports' contents were exempt from the Freedom of Information Act. Yikes. But that is a little bit weird. Okay, I had one weird about celebrities, but I don't know if you know of a guy named Metatron. Carlos Santana totally knows Metatron, believes in him, and a lot of celebrities are starting to fall on the Metatron is my maker kind of train. And you thought Jim Carrey and the anti-vaxxers thing is weird. We have new religions spotting up with people named after Decepticons. Okay, how many? I got a couple more minutes to run through this. This is one of my favorite stories of things that you would not believe are things. However, we should put this as hashtag things that should totally be a thing here. Because this story doesn't come from the United States, it comes from France. Recently, the French, known for their baguettes, their Eiffel Towers, and the city of Paris that smells like pee. Seriously. It's terrible there. They have been surprisingly pro-worker sanity. Now, see, here in the United States, we have this culture that permeates through all of the industries, not only corporate, but manufacturing industries that work, never stops. Not France. France recently outlawed after-hour work emails. Do you know how many times I would have put every single employee in this building in jail for after-hour work emails? I do not do them. Well, now France says you can't. So companies with more than 50 employees cannot send work emails outside of, and this is the letter of the law, quote, typical office hours. This is all a part of this movement that's happened across Europe with workers called the, quote, right to disconnect. The right to have my own life back, people. And that is a thing in France. It should totally be a thing here in the United States, but it isn't. Why? Oh, dear God, why? But yeah, recently France said, if you do this, work emails after hours, we're going to fine you heavily. Now, French companies, of course, have started protesting this and said that, oh, God, you're going to hate this. They said that their country is now going to fall behind the rest of the world. But given where the United States stands in world education and GDP and all of that, France, don't worry, we're not catching you anytime soon. All right, this one is going to be my last story of the day, and it's one totally to make you say, thank God we live Hawaii. A man in Thailand was recently sitting on a toilet when a 10-foot python emerged from the drain and bit him squarely on his kibbles and bits. Didn't just nick them, latched onto them like they were the pull tab to the human sitting on the toilet that was somehow going to suck the man down with him. Now the victim says, who is now my new hero, the victim says it took a total of 30 minutes to pry open the snake's jaws so that he could free his junk. Now get this, both the python and the man's junk both survived the ordeal. However, it should be noted that the young man did pass out from the blood loss after spending 30 minutes of freeing his snake from another snake. That's been Things You Won't Believe Are Things here on a Thursday. Thanks for joining me on the Shaggy Jenkins Show. We'll see you tomorrow.